What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to FudgeMuppet. This is the Elder Scrolls podcast. I'm Scott. I'm here with Michael and Drew, and today we are ranking the Daedric artifacts. So I'll let Michael take it away.
All right, so there's a lot of Daedric artifacts. Like when you actually go and compile a list, there is a huge amount. So what we kind of want to do at the start is first I'm going to set up some parameters, and then we're just going to go on like a massive disqualification spree, basically. So parameters being the Daedric artifacts have to be something that Daedric princes are kind of known to claim, like it's their artifact. It's not just going to be anything from a Daedric realm is a Daedric artifact. So in the case of the Shivering Isles is kind of the obvious one. Things like Nerve Shadow and Rings of Lordship and stuff like that isn't on the list. Because we don't want to be like, well, technically every Grummite weapon, every Grummite dagger is a Daedric artifact, you know? Yep. It's also important to acknowledge that the Daedric artifacts do have different powers depending on the user, and it can kind of change in appearance and power over time. But we're kind of just looking at it as a whole, like all the manifestations of their powers that we've seen throughout the Elder Scrolls timeline. So,
and just to throw in there, this is being ranked on sort of coolness and subjective appreciation. Mm-hmm. It's not just a power list.
Yeah, exactly. Although, as I found when I was making it, I don't know about you two, but power definitely makes a Daedric artifact cooler. So sure. A lot of the top ones do tend to be...
I'd say I didn't really take power into consideration much at all, except for maybe one or two of my top 10.
Ooh.
But that would be interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I know what you
Me
mean.
too.
It does kind of, like, because if they're powerful, then they impact the world much more, and they're more involved in the stories, and therefore they just become more interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so you two speak up if any of these are in your like top 10 kind of list that you've made, okay? Mm-hmm. So we have the Bitter Cup, which is like a cup of Clavicus vial that can grant the user power. It's cool, but I don't think it's particularly interesting. I think it makes you really good at what you're good at and bad at what you're bad at least from a gameplay perspective. There's Fear Struck, which is the shield given to Lyrisius by Boethia, which was just instantly melted by dragon, so I don't think I'd rank it that highly. There's also the Folium Discognitum, which is cool. It's like Shea Gorath's tome, but it is also just like the ramblings of a madman.
It's kind of just like knockoff Augma Infinium or Black Books, but insane and crazy.
Which is kind of the others anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like if you read the Black Books,
but they're supposed to
crazy.
There's like a logical reason as to why it drives you insane. The other one's just a book of random scribbles by madmen.
It's supposedly really powerful. Like mages have really wanted it, but the writing kind of moves as you try to look at it. You know when you get a floater in your eye and you just try and look at it?
So the book of dyslexics. It's like
Yeah, exactly. Then we have the Memory Wand, which is just a Shea Gorath wand which manipulates memories, nothing special. The Mortum Vivicus, which is just an Elder Scrolls Online Molag Bao orb weapon thing, nothing special. Obsidian Husk, I believe that's a Mephala-based kind of
just a gemstone thing, yeah.
It can like, I don't know, give you shadow powers and stuff like that. The Orb of Veamina, which is just like a scrying stone thing from a quest. Prismatic Core, another like weapon-based thing. The Spear of the Hunter, which is one of Hircine's spears, but I just think it gets overshadowed by the Spear of Bitter Mercy. Yeah. It's just like a less cool spear that's like whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
The Sword of the Moon Reaver, which was used to defeat Dagon and was owned by his like paramour and bodyguard Mazkin, but it's just a really boring looking sword. And the Totems of Hircine, which is the totems you collect in the companion storyline. Interesting, definitely not top 10 material.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we move into a pile that I've designated as maybe. But they're still nah for me.
Well, it's like maybe top 10 material, but that's even just getting into the highest. Like, there's still a lot of top 10 contenders at that anyway.
Yeah, okay, I'll try and bang through them real quick. So we've got the Boa Shadows, which makes you invisible, and it's a bow from Nocturnal. The Deadland Hammer, which is like Mehrunes' hammer, but it doesn't really do anything that crazy. Fey Falcon, which is like a quill of Clavicus vials that lets you write like really powerful scripture, but also influence your thoughts. The classic Fork of Herpulation, Shea Gorath's Fork, which I don't know, Drew, is that a top 10?
No, definitely not.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It's got a nice story, but it's not going to be top 10. The Moonlight Blade, which is cool. It's like a sickle of Azura's that can like kind of be used to access like cut through barriers and stuff. And I like sickles, but again, not top 10. Ring of Hersine and the Ring of Namira. Any of you two have them in top 10?
No.
Nah.
They're cool. And I think it's Daggerfall, the Ring of Namira just reflects all damage.
Yeah.
Which
in Oblivion, it
damage,
reflects, it's like a 12% spell and a 10% damage or reverse, one of those.
And then in Skyrim, you just eat people.
Yeah.
Rings get a bit boring, I think. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
But I do like, it was like half reflect Daedra damage, full reflect mortal damage, and like double reflect, I think, undead damage. It was pretty cool. Anyway, so then, and Ring of Hersine is nothing special, although I think in Blood Moon it actually is what lets you transform to a werewolf just by using it. I had the Rueful Axe in the maybe pile as well. It just looks cool, but I think part of the thing is it's really weak.
There is that too. It's a cool looking weapon. There's going to be plenty of cool looking things. Like, once again, like Daedric, the same as the Daedric Princes kind of ranking, like they're all really cool by default. Like, they're some of the coolest gods. So by default, a lot of their artifacts are going to be some of the coolest artifacts, like in general, like compared to other sort of more standard ones. But, you know,
I think a big part of my top 10 was deciding which one had the coolest story associated with it. And the Rueful Axe has a kind of interesting story with the guy whose daughter became a Hersine worshipper, and his way of curing her was to slay her with this axe, basically. So it's an interesting story, but it's not nearly as cool as some of them that we're going to get onto.
Yeah, 100%. Savior's Hide's there too. It was, powerful in Battle Spire, and it's got magical resistance and all that, but basically you just chuck it on a Bosma, a Bosma build.
Yeah.
That's it. Shadow Rend is a shadowy battle axe or claymore from the Shivering Isles, but again, not particularly interesting. And I think, I don't know, Drew, the Sword of Gigalag.
Nah.
Not
really.
Okay. The Sword of Gigalag was definitely in my maybe pile.
Well, what were your reasons for bumping it to a maybe or having it as a maybe? Is there anything in particular, or just because it's kind of cool?
I just don't find it that interesting, but I guess it was in the maybe pile because it has this enchantment supposedly that allows those that gaze upon its edge to see the past, present, and future flow as one, which is cool. But again, I'm not going to rank something on one sentence, which brings us to the top 10 potential list.
I think I've ranked some stuff based on one sentence. I'm not sure. We'll see. If it's a particularly good sentence, but we'll see.
If it's a really good sentence. Okay. All right. So, what did you two think of Azura Star? I'll let you two talk because I've been talking too much.
I mean, I like Azura Star, but not enough to put it in the top 10. I mean, like, actually getting to kind of experience being inside of it was really cool. And the fact it can be corrupted into the Black Star, it's kind of it's a good demonstration of Azura's sphere, like the positivity of when she's worshipped versus how malevolent it can get when she's scorned. So I kind of like it, but it is just a soul gem, and
it's useful too. But I do like that the idea of it being an infinite soul gem, and the sort of like lots of mages desire it and so on. It has interesting applications, but still, it's not like, it's just not cool enough to really get up there.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this the other day, Scott, and I did a full 180. Azura Star is in my top 10.
Right.
Top 10 Daedric. I just think there's some interesting stories. Like in Morrowind, pretty sure you hold the soul of... It holds the soul of living gods, right? Vivek and Almalexia.
Well, yeah, it can be used to.
And then consumed in a ritual performed by Martin Septim. At least that's like the canon option.
Yeah.
To kind of like open the portal to Mankar Cameron's paradise.
Well, it's, the default option. Like,
yeah, the default, which I imagine is canon. And then there's the whole story in Skyrim where, someone uses this artifact to basically go inside of it, right? But then in a way, you've kind of become like immortal because you're just stuck in this like void like realm, just forever kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of being stuck in an asylum for immortality. It's worth it.
No, I'm not saying it's a good deal.
It's just cool, yeah.
Yeah, at least that's my interpretation of it. It's interesting and sought by all different kinds of people, and Azura's cool. I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on, but just know that's in my top 10. All right, we also have another one in my top 10 I can say now, and that's the Black Books of Hermaeus Molag.
I've got them in my top 10 as well.
And you've just made a video on them.
I have. Just written.
What do you think?
So
Drew?
I've kind of merged my opinion on the Black Books with my opinion on the Augma Infinium, because there was a few books to choose from, and I mean, me saying this could give it away, but I actually have a book very high up the list. But it's not the Black Books, and it's not the Augma Infinium.
Yeah, well,
it's the Mysterium Xarxes.
But we'll talk about that.
You love Xarxes. I was kind of expecting.
But I mean, yeah, well, the Mysterium
Xarxes
specifically has some really cool reasons why. I mean, it was high in my list, and then it got even higher. So, but that's neither here nor there. So the Augma Infinium and the Black Books are cool, but because there's a book I think is way cooler, I didn't really bother ranking them.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that now. We can just talk Augma Infinium. Same thing, you know, it's this book that can give you powers, and I just said powers really weird. Powers, and it can drive you a bit nuts if you can't handle it.
I just think Augma Infinium sort of like budget Black Books. Like compared to Black Books is so much cooler by comparison. And also forget like that the Black Books are like one of the only portals to Apocrypha. And even though it's like kind of your soul going there, it's pretty much an untouched realm unless you're this super... master of conjuration or something, or you have some sort of Daedric connections, but it's not, and I'll little tentacles like popping out and stuff, but it leads you into, like, you can kind of conflate a little bit of the Black Books with Apocrypha because you kind of go through this big gauntlet in Apocrypha as reading the books. But the Black Books have some like really cool lines in there because there's like the first sentences you can actually like physically read when you open the book, but it's like presumably like the book goes on, but some of them just have really interesting like little like nods and stuff and like
I think
to the metaphysics.
What's cool about the Augma Infinium, it's one of those one sentence things where it says, it was made from Xarxes' favorite moments in history and, named after his wife. And I really like the aesthetic of it, at least in Sky or Oblivion and Skyrim, I think, is that, it's kind of made from the hides of different races. So that's all cool. But yeah, I agree that probably the Black Books, on a non-aesthetic level anyway, are more interesting.
And I also like, speaking of the Mysterium Xarxes, that back when gaming was less digital, I went to the shop and I bought Oblivion, which came in the box, but basically it looked like the Mysterium Xarxes. That's what the cover of Oblivion is. A lot of people don't realize that. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, I can't believe I just figured that out today. Anyway, next up we have the Daedric Crescent, which is actually multiple of the Daedric Crescents. Yeah. They're like a giant, like... crescent, I guess. It's like with a handle in the middle, but you hold it two-handed in the game.
It's like an anime weapon looking thing, but I tell you what, I had it as number 10 of my top 10 just for the meme value. I just like it. I think it looks cool, and when I see like Dagon-y looking characters and stuff like holding it and stuff, I just like it as like it's this sort of desired Daedric weapon, but I could
correct
be
me if I'm
otherwise.
wrong, but isn't it a relatively standard Daedric weapon? It's just its scarcity after the Battle Spire incident that made it an artifact, or was it always an artifact?
That sounds familiar.
I'm fairly sure that like the Mehrunes Dagon's armies were all wielding them, but they were all destroyed when the Battle Spire incident failed, and one was kept going, and it basically now it's an artifact. Yeah. So it's not that it's necessarily
that's right.
powerful.
I mean, I could easily have it like I could easily be convinced to have it out of the top 10 list we're making. Like, I'm not like gonna fight for it.
I do like that it damages armor and also does paralysis. It's a really interesting combination.
Yeah. I know what you're getting at as well, really Scott, cool. Because I'll send you the photo to make sure the same one goes into the podcast. But there's a really cool image from the codex of like
the orange
Dagon's hordes, and there's like heads on spikes, and there's someone's holding a Daedric Crescent up to the sky. It looks really badass
with one hand as well.
It's a purely aesthetic decision for me.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah.
Now we're gonna go to a controversial one. Drew, do you have Dawnbreakers number 1?
Number 1 seemed like it wasn't fair. It needed to be above 1, but 0, I don't know. Like, I didn't want to get into the negatives. Nah, it's not on there for me.
Not on the top 10 list.
I had it low-ish on the top 10 list, but once again, easily convinced otherwise. But I just like it being like this sort of cool undead sort of sword. But I like the Meridia purity kind of stuff anyway, so I like it being like sort of an embodiment of her thing with like the purging light kind of vibe.
Yeah, and her obsession with light as well, like based on the fact that she was kind of designated to a Daedric realm after being like one of the Magna Gi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. And also the effect when you kill undead and they explode for more damage is pretty beast. I actually had Dawnbreaker as number 10 for me. It just made it in. And I'll also just say I had the Black Books as number 4. And we also talked about Azura Star. I have Azura Star at number 5.
Okay.
What I explained, I just really like.
So far, what have we actually like knocked out that's in no one's top 10? Nothing.
We've knocked out the you had.
I did have it there.
So nothing.
All right, well, let's keep going.
Nothing. And Ebony Blade is in my top 10
Same.
as number 8.
I had it as
because I actually kind of find it kind of boring, a bit generic. So I'm curious to hear why you guys put it in the top 10.
Okay.
You go, Scott.
I was just gonna say it's a black katana and it's so basic, but it's cool, right? And I like the whole vampire kind of element to it, and the absorbing health. But there's 2 other little lines that I like about it. Well, not lines. One of them's a line about how it can't even be destroyed or melted down in the Skyforge. It's just sort of like this, like super powerful, unbreakable weapon. But I also just like the whole Mafal element of things, that it actually hungers and grows in power as it's fed by betrayal, like betraying friends. It's just interesting. So it's that thing, like a lot of appeal of Daedric artifacts to me, often they're like sort of like corrupting or trick influence kind of thing. So it's sort of like, you made a deal with the devil, but like, you want to get more and more power, so you keep betraying your friends, and then it's like, you're like, yes, I got a powerful sword, but look what it's made you do. Like, I like that kind of
I like when an artifact sums up a prince pretty well. I think it's kind of it's detrimental that it's just a katana, but yeah, go on, Michael.
The thing I like about it as well is that Mafala can whisper through it. That's cool. That like cool. It's not just I'm being corrupted by the Ebony Blade because the more I betray people with it, the more powerful it gets. You've also kind of got the devil on your shoulder in a sense. Like, you have Mafala whispering through the blade, and it slowly corrupts your mind. There's stories about it corrupting people's mind until they snap and ensnare the souls of, fellow friends and things like this. And I also like in the Kijiti myths, they actually refuse to mention its name, but instead call it like the black edge of shadow or the killing word of the spider. All those kind of references.
I'm pretty sold now on that being a top 10 contender out of the ones we've gone through so far.
Cool. I had it as number 8.
I had it as 7.
And it may move up the list. But anyway, so then we move on to Ebony Mail, which honestly ended up being kicked out of my top 10. The main thing I like about it, and kind of the only thing, is the poison thing. Like in Skyrim, the poison emanating off with all this black shadow. But I realized that was it. Like, that's kind of the only reason.
What's your take, Drew?
Yeah, I think it's a bit lackluster.
Yeah.
For Boethia, there could have been something much cooler for the piece of armor that he gives to the champion. So, yeah.
I'm in the same boat. Yeah. I agree. It's a cool little effect. It looks cool, but it's just not that nuts.
It's really aesthetic. It's funny, though, because things get subjective, because we'll be like, oh, it's really aesthetic, but no.
See,
and then it'll go, Mask of Clavicus Vial, and I'll be like, it's so aesthetic, it's got to be top 10.
But it's got more.
Yeah, I think the Ebony Mail was really boring to look at, personally.
Well, then, Drew, tell me what you think of the Golden Katana Gold brand. Is it just another katana for you?
Yeah, I mean, Gold brand is cool, but there also isn't a great deal of interesting information on it. I mean, what happened in Legend? It came up in Legends, didn't it? The card game?
It's that originally in the Skyrim lore, it was supposed to be that there were like rumors that Titus Mead, the second was wielding it as he went into battle in the Battle of Red Ring. But Elder Scrolls Legends has the forgotten hero impersonating the Emperor in his armor using Goldbrand instead.
Yeah.
And that's a discussion.
It's said to be forged by dragons of the north. I'm assuming that's dragons from Atmora, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Overall, I think it's not as good of a katana as the Ebony Blade. Ebony Blade has a better story and theme.
Yeah, I think it could be, but it just hasn't been fleshed out properly, so there's not enough to talk about.
And turning it into Elton Brand is just a massive meme.
Yeah.
Massive meme. Anyway, next up, the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal. Now, I'm an Oblivion fiend, so this one ranked highly for me. What about you two?
That's in the top 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you,
I have it
Scott?
in my top 10. I had it at number 6, but it kind of looks a bit stupid in retrospect, but it's got such a cool story and like the whole Grey Fox idea behind it and everything. It's still up there and it looks cool, but I know that like, I feel like you can make it look cooler. Like in the Skyrim like bust of it, it looks a lot better. But in Oblivion, when you go back, man, the Grey Fox just looks so bad.
I know, it looks fun.
Weirdly, the fact it looks kind of dull, it seems fitting, at least, for what it is. You know, the idea that it's anonymity and you know, you get away with things with it. So it's just basically literally just kind of like a grey balaclava with some Daedric runes on it.
Yeah.
But to me, I'd almost say it doesn't look dull in the sense that it's just some boring cowl. It like almost attracts attention because you look so silly.
Yeah, fair.
In Oblivion, at least.
Yeah, well, because it full on warped his eyes and stuff. They went like heaps, like there's something
Weird.
wrong with the shape of it.
Yeah, see, that's the Oblivion effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. But it is cool. And I ranked it very highly. I can tell you two right now that the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal comes in my top 10 as rank number 2.
Ooh, okay. I had it 4.
I just really like the story of it, and anything with a curse I find really interesting. And the idea that it can almost like retroactively rewrite history when you wear it so that the person wearing it never existed in any way or form, to me is just so interesting. And thinking of all the potential that it has, right? Like you could do anything with no consequence. Like say there's a Daedric artifact that gives you like superpowers, right? You will still attract a lot of attention to yourself and you can still be killed. Like things, you can still die even if you get some superpower. But with the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal, there's this anonymity where you just put it on and then do whatever you want and then take it off, and then everyone, even like super powerful people, they will not recognize that you're the one who just did something bad. The only problem is if you trespass, you kind of screwed, because if you take it off, he's still trespassing.
Yeah.
But like other things, you know, it gets really interesting. But anyway, we'll move on from the Grey Cowl for now, and we will talk about the Mace of Molag Bao. This is something that I found really cool when I was playing Skyrim, especially for our Daedra Priest build. But upon reflection, and I think because of Elder Scrolls Online having too much Molag Bao stuff, I'm just sick of it, man. It's just a big scary mace.
I sort of agree that it is just a big scary mace that looks really cool in Skyrim and so on, but like I don't think there's anything particularly like stand out about it besides that.
Yeah, I agree totally.
Yeah.
It's just a mace. So that wasn't in my top 10. But then we have the Mask of Clavicus Vial. Do you call it the mask or the mask?
Yeah, I just say mask.
It's just
got this interesting spelling. So the Mask of Clavicus Vial. Top 10 points for aesthetics.
It's my number 2, Ray.
It's also my number 2.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Maybe I might
okay.
have the same number 1 and 2 as you, Drew. I have a feeling.
Uh-oh.
I have a feeling.
Yeah, we got some Clavicus
But
Vial
Mask of,
lovers
I think,
over
if
here.
we were talking about the Mask of Clavicus Vial, for the reasons, it just looks aesthetic and super cool, and it has some nice effects and so on. But my main thing about it is the story. Like it's the epitome of like Clavicus Vial kind of screwing someone over, and it's just such a like heart-wrenching story so we can go into that more when we're explaining like why we really, you know.
no, just tell the story.
Well, by the
now,
way,
it's
just to
fine.
clear up, the reason it's called Mask, spelt M-A-S-Q-U-E, is because it's kind of like the Renaissance era masquerade.
Yeah,
if you think about it
right.
like that. So, which, you know,
Right.
perfectly sums up what it does. But go on, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell
so
the
I can just
story.
I think I can't remember if this is my notes on it or if I've copied the actual post from it, but the actual story. But ever the vain one, Clavicus Vile made a mask suited to his own personality. The bearer of the mask is more likely to get a positive response from people at Tamriel. Okay, the best known story of the mask tells the tale of Avalia, a noble woman of some renown. As a young girl, she was grossly disfigured by a spiteful servant. Avalia made a dark deal with Clavicus Vile and received the mask in return. Though the mask did not change her looks, suddenly she had the respect and admiration of everyone. A year and a day later, after her marriage to a well-connected baron, Clavicus Vile reclaimed the mask. Although pregnant with his child, Avalia was banished from the baron's household. 21 years and 1 day later, Avalia's daughter claimed her vengeance by slaying the baron. But I just like how it's this big sort of...
That's so heavy.
This big, heavy story and so on. But it's that deal with the devil thing that I love so much about the Daedra. And then on top of it, it just looks really cool. And in pretty much all of its incarnations, it's just a very cool concept. And, what's that movie? I think maybe it's Leonardo DiCaprio, The Iron Mask or something, or
Man in the Iron Mask.
Man in the Iron Mask, but those kinds of things. It just gives you those vibes. And I'm a sucker for masks in general, so
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious to imagine, it's as deceptive as it is, and if it looks the way it's portrayed in, say, Morrowind or Oblivion, where it's this, the horned helmet and the guy with the goatee, you can just imagine this woman wearing that, and like for 21 years or whatever, having their children together, and he doesn't realize anything is wrong while he kisses this stoneless metal mask.
No, I think 21 years was when she got her vengeance.
the daughter.
But it was still a year.
Oh, yeah, sorry, a year.
It was still
gotcha.
a year, though. So you're right.
Yeah.
Like a year and a day after her marriage. So what? She just go to bed.
But that's what's the cool thing
with the
about that
mask
sort of
on.
like the glamour effect of these magical artifacts and so on.
Yeah, that even though it looks like that, somehow people just love you for wearing it. Like you look so silly, but everyone who glances upon you is like, I really like you.
But yeah, in short... Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I think because of the way Clavicus Vile is all about pacts and deals, he's naturally going to have the most interesting artifacts, in my opinion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can vibe with that for sure. And on that note, I do like, even though in Daggerfall it doesn't have that same kind of horned vibes, I do like how Daggerfall Daedric artifacts, they put this like opal effect onto everything, for lack of better words. Like if you look at Spellbreaker, for example, it looks just like a shield with giant like opal. You know that rainbow shiny kind of stone look? Yeah, I really like that. I think it's super cool.
All right, let's kick.
All right. Next, we have Mehrunes Razor. What did you two think of that?
Yeah,
I mean,
I kind of glossed over it.
There's some cool lines about it, but it is just like, well, I hope it's a line, because he's mentioned this yesterday, Uncle, that they're cutting... Was it cutting into... It could cut into... You explain.
No, okay, so I'll explain it, because there's not a lot of solid lore on it. So I'll just... The idea is that, theoretically, Mehrunes Razor isn't just an instant kill dagger, which is cool in itself. Like, it looks cool. It has a chance to kill anything instantly. And it's like kind of, the Dark Brotherhood would really love this dagger too. But there's this idea, like a metaphysical idea, that it can like tear through barriers almost and let you go to places. And like, I've even heard this idea thrown around that it can sever like cosmic bonds and like kind of like godly oaths and stuff. And it's, it's all like this, but I find that super, super cool.
Yeah, no.
Like I find that really, really interesting. And for that reason, I've actually got it in my top 10.
Right. I mean, I could be convinced of it, but like I said...
I have the Mask of Clavicus Vile as well, ranked number 6, but I think I could put it up. But I had Mehrunes Razor at 7, although now that I look at it, I think I'd move it down under the Ebony Blade, make it an 8.
Well, so that's a contender. So we've only knocked out, like, what? Ebony Mail, Goldbrand, and Mace of Molag Bao.
It's all right. We'll knock out a bunch in a row, surely.
Yeah. Well, Mysterium Xarxes, right? Is the next one.
Next is the Mysterium
So that was in the
Xarxes.
maybe pile.
No, these are all top 10
Right,
potential.
cool.
It's like a separate pile, yeah.
So...
You
Take
go.
it away.
Come on.
You go.
Mysterium Xarxes. Tell us all about it.
So that was at my number 6 when I was theorizing this, but then I was looking at it again this morning and just going over it all, and I'm like, actually, it's my number 1.
I have those moments as well. Hey, like it
Okay.
just depends on your mood.
Like, I'll let Scott talk about it first because I'll probably fawn over it for a little bit. But I mean,
did-
it's one of those things where there's a sentence, the desert of written in the desert of
Yeah.
rust and wounds, that might be my favorite sentence from Elder Scrolls lore, just period. But
Yeah.
I'll talk more about it in a sec.
It's a really, really good piece. I didn't even have it in my top 10, but the reason is because when I was looking at it, I like a lot, and I guess this counts. So I don't know what to do with it, but like the Mythic Dawn commentaries and everything, and the Mythic Dawn itself, and everything that sort of spawns from the book is what I find interesting. Less so like the outside of that line, like that line is really cool, but then the book is just like this powerful book of crazy knowledge or whatever. And I do also like that like Martin Septim has to be like super careful reading it, and only his eyes, because he's had some like Daedric experience before. I could definitely...
But that's no different to the Black Books or the Augma Infinium, though. He'd be reading them super duper carefully too.
Yeah.
So to me, it's kind of just like goes in the same thing as the Augma Infinium, except it has that extra cool sentence.
So, well,
it looks the same in Oblivion, actually. When you open the Augma Infinium, it just has the Mysterium Xerxes pages in it, because I think they got lazy with the design.
So to me, there's a few things that sets it apart from all the other books on this list. But I mean, first, like I really like how Mankar Cameron describes it as he says, each word is razor-fed and secret, thinner than cataclysms, tarnished like red drink, when describing reading from it, which is really cool, and it has a violent, corrupting influence. But I think what's like most special about it, given that Mehrunes Dagon is the kind of the Prince of Change and Revolution, is that it inspired the Oblivion Crisis, and it was used to create Gyra Lata. That's another thing. But simply the fact that it inspired potentially, well, I'd say, the biggest chaotic event in the whole of, in Tamriel's recent history at least. That you got to give credit to the Mysterium Xerxes for that.
I mean, I could definitely agree to put it on a top 10.
I'm vibing it.
But like I said, I don't have many in the top 10 that I'm actually like super set on.
That tends to happen. I'm sure people in the audience will agree, and you can tell us in the comments. Do you find that when you make a list of a top 10, for example, that the bottom 5 you end up just being like, I could just switch these out with anything depending on my mood? I mean, for me, it can even be the top 5 sometimes.
Yeah.
Like the second we did our Ranking the Gods podcast, I went away and then I just thought for 10 minutes and everything changed. Suddenly I ranked Akatosh way higher. So like it all just depends on how you feel at the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll move on from the Mysterium Xerxes and we will talk about... Let me have a look here.
Augma Infinium?
Yes. The Augma Infinium, which we already talked about.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's anything more to say, I feel like that was pretty covered.
So did you guys have it in your top 10 though?
No.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah. Okay, Ring of Kijiti.
So that's another ring that's kind of... It's a bit, it's whatever. But it has a decent story with Rajin, the burglar Kijit. And that's a cool story, stealing off Mafala's arm. But other than that, there's not a great deal that's that special to me about it.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same as me. It's basically just an invisibility thief ring. Turns you invisible, makes you fast and agile and stuff like that. It's cool. They're all cool. That's the thing. But yeah, definitely not top 10 potential. Then we have Sanguine Rose, or Sanguine's Rose, as I tend to call it, which is, as the name suggests, Sanguine's artifact. Now, obviously, a staff that's a giant rose is really cool, but I think that it just summoning kind of like Daedra to help you is nothing special. It's nothing that you can't achieve with conjuration magic, whereas other artifacts are specifically unique.
So you hit the nail on the head with that for me, because I had it in my top 10, but my problem with it is game mechanics. I think having it just be a tool to summon Dremora or Daedra in general is so boring considering its potential. Like, I love the idea that it's a rose, whether a literal rose or like a wooden staff, and the idea that it wilts with usage. It's very much like Sanguine and his hedonistic nature. The idea is that you get what you want, and then you realize, instant gratification. It's like it comes back to bite you in the arse, and Sanguine's Rose is perfect for that, except for the fact that I think it should kind of give you what you desire rather than just giving you a Dremora. If it did that, it would be like right in my top 3 or 4. But the fact it just
Yeah.
summons Dremora in all the games is like,
I agree.
Me too. I think it has so much potential. And I mean, we all remember the Oblivion quest where you go into the Countess's party in Leyawiin and use a spell to make them lose their clothes. It's just a prank. But yeah, I like the idea that it wilts and that the petals actually like fall off until you've used it up, and then Sanguine kind of reclaims it. I'm assuming grows it again. And like that's all super cool. But yeah, just because of the actual applications that we've seen so far, it didn't make the cut for me.
yeah, fair.
Next up is Scourge, which is a mace, which, Drew, I'm sure you're fond of because it's said to be forged by Malakath. And honestly, at first I thought, there's nothing that interesting about Scourge, right? Well, actually, it's forged from sacred ebony in the fires of Fickledire,
Which sounds
associated
cool.
with Malakath. Yeah, it does. Now, the reason why I think it's just because it wasn't in Skyrim, so it's like it's not as memorable because it was in Morrowind. But what it does is it banishes Daedra that you hit with it, right? But it can also conjure Daedra, such as Dremora and Scamp. So to me, it's just like the Mace of Molag Bao and Sanguine Rose combined. It can do everything. Why would you rank it lower than either of those two? You know what I mean?
I had that in my top 10. I like the idea. Well, it's very low in the top 10, and by low I mean 9 or 10. I like that it's called Defender of the Friendless, and it kind of it does sum up Malakath pretty well. That it's like the bane of Daedra, even though he's a Daedric prince. So it's kind of like it's cool. It's kind of a little bit of Trinimac left in him almost. That's coming through in that artifact, but I wasn't too fond of it. Not enough to put it way up there.
Yeah.
I didn't even rank it, but I mean, it could be. I could be convinced of it. Like, there's cool stuff about it. Sounds cool, but like,
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be on there.
I'm gonna get rid of that. Are we all in agreement to get rid of Sanguine Rose from the top 10?
yes.
Yeah, cool. And the Ebony Mail as well. And the Augma Infinium and the gold brand. So I'm just actually deleting them now. Okay. We move on to a really cool one, the Skeleton Key.
I had it in there. I had it as top 3 though. That could even move around a little bit. But like, I just think like the classic. I really liked what Skyrim did to it because before it was just like a lockpick that like basically like a key that can open any lock. But I really liked how they expanded that idea more to the metaphysical kind of ideas that it could like unlock. Like how it was work.
Unlock your potential.
Yeah, like things like that. It's just, I think it's interesting. But then again, I feel like now that I'm actually speaking back, like maybe there's even like, it could go lower because there's actually not heaps on it. I think it's just actually a really powerful artifact. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
For sure.
So, I mean, I put it on there as well, but and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading this before and I feel like this is all pretty viable, but it kind of ties in a cool way to the Kijiti pantheon, because the idea is that Azura created the Kijit and protected them with this lunar lattice, and the idea is that Nocturnal actually stole it from Azura. And so when it says that the key can open, I don't know the exact words, but your potential, and then other, Michael, you might be able to find the specific thing it says, but it can unlock almost interdimensional things. So the way I interpret that is potentially it's a way to bypass the lunar lattice and kind of break through the barrier between Mundus and Oblivion.
That's a really cool connection. Yeah. I like
that is super
that
cool.
secured
and
the spot.
for that reason, I've got Skeleton Key as number 3.
Yeah, same.
I think I think the Skeleton Key is super cool. If you look at the aesthetic of the Skeleton Key in Daggerfall, it looks really cool. Again, they like to do this rainbow kind of design on it, but the way that the end of the key is shaped, I can almost imagine it's a computer part. And then you know how you can get into like all those like crazy Elder Scrolls theories,
Yeah, like the Morrowind one
get,
especially.
like technological and stuff. You look at the actual Daggerfall one, it just looks like it should be inside my PC that I'm looking at now. It should just be on the side there.
The Morrowind one really does remind me of something like where you like stab it in like a tech kind of looking thing. Like if you were to say that is just like a little like, it's in Cyberpunk 2077 and that's the lockpick thing, like an electrical
one, you plug it in, press a button.
Yeah.
And it
Or
goes,
what they call them, Knights of the Old Republic. again? It's not
I
computer.
forget.
Spikes, aren't they? Just called spikes. Computer spikes. Oh, no.
I actually don't remember, so I don't want to confirm.
Anyway, but it's that kind of vibe looking thing.
Yeah, I like it. So there's this idea that the skeleton key can kind of like, help you unlock not just doors and stuff, but internal potential. So like if you're a mage, you can become super powerful mage, or if you're a warrior, you can become a grandmaster. But the problem with it is it's kind of like only usable if you're that 1 in a million type person who knows how to actually harness the power in it. Like for most people, you're just going to use it to open doors and chests, and you know what I mean? You're not going to like slip into the Etherean crux and like, go to Lig like Menkar Cameron did and like, make yourself Dragonborn or something like that. Like it's kind of like the limits of the skeleton key are only limited to your imagination in a way, but I don't think most people would do very interesting things with it because it relies on them having kind of other knowledge and other powers and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about the next one on the list, which is the Skull of Corruption. What do you two think?
It's pretty mad looking stuff, but again, I feel like it's actual game. Oblivion's was better, but like its actual game application, like I get like Steel Dreams and stuff to power it. It's kind of a cool function, but it's actually really weak as well in the actual game, which doesn't necessarily have to affect it. But
I do like that you can create a clone of whoever it's cast upon, at least in previous games, like in Oblivion. And it's not like some ghostly, ethereal looking clone. It actually is like a full-on like clone,
Yeah.
like and it attacks that person. And there's also that cool story which they say is probably fiction, but basically like a thieves guild master, like the master used the skull on her enemy, creating a clone, and then after defeating the original, the duplicate snatched the skull and used it on the master, and then there were like 2 thieves guild masters ruling the thieves guild together.
Right.
it's just a silly little story.
Yeah, I like that story. That made me like it a lot more because it apart from being visually really cool, it didn't really jump out to me until that story. So I don't really mind if it's on top 10, but I do like it.
For me, it's not. Yeah. Was it in your top 10?
No, it didn't actually get there, but I was tossing it up.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. What about the Spear of Bitter Mercy?
Yeah, I had it number 5.
I knew you'd have it higher. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I really, in general, I'm a sucker for spears. I really like spears. I think they're just underused in general. And I don't know, I kind of like how it almost has like staff-like properties in that it like can summon this Storm Atronach kind of thing. But I was looking at it and I wasn't like super sure, but then I started reading more about it. I was reminded the whole Thane Icehammer story of how it came to be. I really, really liked it. I'll go get the actual book that has it. Or maybe I'll just, or I could just read the wiki. Well, it was just easy enough to do that. But there's a Nord hunter named Thane Icehammer who, in the mid-late 5th century of the First Era, unknowingly killed several were creatures during a hunting trip to Yogrim River Basin. And I'm pretty sure this is all in Solstheim. Angered by the death of his kin, Hircine thrust his Spear of Bitter Mercy into Icehammer's side, where the tip broke off and remained lodged inside him. Thane returned wounded to his home Cragwallow, but slowly the magic of Hircine's spear corrupted his mind, eventually resulting in him becoming mad and ultimately causing him to murder an acolyte of Kine in a fit of rage. Matron Icehammer was appalled by her husband's actions and ordered the guards to subdue the Thane, and basically gets put in this big ancient burial ruin where he's sealed alive for punishment. But I just kind of like, I don't know, I vibe with that story. Plus, I also like the idea that it's built, forged by Mehrunes Dagon, but it's also sort of by that associated with Mehrunes Dagon, but also has been associated with Hircine and Shea Gorath as well, like that it's kind of like gotten around, or there might even be multiples as others said. But and then obviously it's got its usefulness in the Battlespire storyline. But yeah, I don't know. What did you guys
did you
think?
rank it, Drew?
I ended up not ranking it purely because there was a different artifact of her scenes that I prioritized. So, but yeah,
okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like pretty much anything outside of my top 3 or 5. Like, I really liked it, but I can understand how it might not fit. Just to clarify that wasn't Solstheim, it was East March, but still.
Yeah. Cool. Next we have Spellbreaker, which I think is really cool. Perryite claims this artifact, but like Volandrom, it's dwarven in design. Like the Dwemer made it.
Yeah.
And it's a shield that can kind of act like a magical ward, but not just in the literal Skyrim sense of like stopping a spell from hitting you, but also in the sense that it can kind of like dispel curses and silence a mage about to cast a spell.
Yeah. I had it in a number 9 or something for it, and the reason I did rank it more, because I like obviously aesthetically and all of its like actual functions, but I liked the purpose for why it is this magical like sucking up shield or defending shield kind of thing, is because the king of Clan Rorken, when Clan Rorken was crossing over into Hammerfell, they came across Shalador, the ancient Nordic famed wizard who, you know, made Shalador's maze and all that, and he single-handedly fought a bunch of them. But that's why the king got them to build Spellbreakers, so to like fight the spells of Shalador, like, well, to defend themselves against it. I just like that sort of, that's why it made it onto the list for me.
Cool.
What did you think, Drew?
Yeah, I had it in there. I was actually tossing up between that and Volandrom, you know, kind of part of the Rorken story, but I like both of them.
Yeah.
Tell us about Saviour's Hide.
Oh yeah, so I guess we mentioned Saviour's Hide, but I was probably in a realm of oblivion on my own at that point. But I actually put Saviour's Hide in my top 10. I'm a big fan of it. Like there's a few origin stories for it, but I really like the idea that there was a mortal in Hircine's hunting grounds who probably, you know, like anyone who's trapped there would just become prey, except he managed to escape. And, you know, but because Hircine, like, what I really like about that prince is that he's magnanimous in defeat and he respects the competition. So the ultimate respect to this guy who escaped was to peel off his own hide and give it to him as a gift. And that's why, for me, that's one of the coolest stories about the origins of an artifact.
I vibe it. I could vibe it I could be convinced. We'll go.
I think it's cool, but I'll write it down as like extra potential. But for me, it's still just like,
it's not one of my musts, so that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we're nearly at the end of the list too. So we'll...
and it was, sorry, I was gonna say it was used with I think I said it before, the Battle Spire thing with Dagon, which was cool to like protect you. But anyway, so after that, what did we just finish off with? Spellbreaker. We have the Staff of Shea Gorath, which for me was an instant no, but it's like worth bringing up because it's interesting and it can kind of like freeze time and like...
There's cool stuff about it, but it's his staff that he can use to sort of control the realm and do his thing. It's just Shea Gorath's staff, and you become Shea Gorath in Shivering Isles, so you sort of remake the staff, or kind of like a new one, and you have the eye in it, and it's cool. It's like, it's fitting, but it's, nothing...
It's just an extension of him, really.
Yeah. All right. Now we're coming out with a hard hitter. All right. This one's going to rank high. Potentially number 1, everyone, is Umbra.
Yeah, it's my number 1.
Yeah.
Is it Drew's as well?
It's number 3.
Oh, okay.
Right, okay. For me, what did I have? Oh, I had a number 1.
I think when it came down to Umbra, the Xerxes, and the Mask, I was very much like, any of these can be a winner for me. Right. I was really happy because Umbra's story is amazing as well. So
that's the biggest thing. And once again, like I was sort of saying about like things that appeal to me in Daedric artifacts are the sort of like deal with the devil or corrupting influence or things like that. And the idea that Umbra literally corrupts you to where you start identifying with the sword and start becoming a character called Umbra. Like you consider yourself Umbra. And it's interesting that it is... By default, Umbra gets a little bit of a leg up because it's almost a character in itself. Because, so there's this witch called Namira Waya or something like that. And she was asked by Clavicus Vile to make this sword so that this sword can be used to kill people and send souls to Clavicus Vile's realm. But she asked, she needed a little bit of extra juice for it to stabilize this sword. So Clavicus Vile gave a piece of his own power to give to the sword, which sort of like gave it its own kind of identity and separated in the same way that kind of like to think about it would be how like Clavicus Vial and Barbus are kind of like separate entities of the same thing, if that makes sense. Like, but anyway, so, and then that sword, goes on and starts kind of like embodying people. I also like that Namira has been speculated to be Shea Gorath in disguise to like screw him over. But that whole corrupting influence of the sword. Then there's also the whole Umbriel thing later on when he actually ends up separating from the sword, like because there's a being within the sword, like Umbra is within the sword, you know what I mean? So
yeah, like it kind of takes on a life of its own and escapes and cuts away some of the prince's power for itself, and then like
black crystal obsidian looking sword, like it just looks sick.
I'm pretty sure it even takes on the form of like a dark being in the shape of a man, but with eyes like holes into nothing. I think is like one of the quotes, which is super cool. But yeah, for me, I think Clavicus Vial's got some of the best artifacts. Earlier, Drew, when you said Clavicus Vial, that's why I thought you'd have Umbra as one as well. But
yeah, they're all
Umbra's
interchangeable.
so cool.
It's just such a cool story. So I think we can lock Umbra in at number 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We've got 2 more to like just rule out, which I don't think anyone will have in their top 10. Volandrom.
It's got a nice little
considered
story.
Yeah, the story about the
100%.
Rorken chief, when separating from the clans in Morrowind or Resdane at the time, just launched the hammer, and wherever it landed is where they'd settle. And that's why it's called Volanfell, Hammerfell. It's named after the artifact, which is a cool story.
Yeah, it's one strong dwarf to throw it that far, eh? It's super cool. And I think I prefer its design to be dwarven. I like when you look at the art for it in Arena, it kind of almost looks like it belongs in the hands of a space marine, like an ultramarine from 40k. But as time went on, it became more corrupted looking, and way more Daedric. Like Malakath has just influenced it that much, and it's just it's cool, but the powers of it aren't like super interesting, So we'll move on to the final one, which I think Scott has at number 1, which is Wabbajack.
It'd be a better joke if I hadn't already said Umbra, but it's terrible.
So why don't you
contrarian and annoy everyone? I know.
He hates
it.
He hates
it's the same.
He despises
it's the same thing. I think everyone loves it just because it's crazy and wacky. But for that same reason, to me, it's boring. It's like typical crazy and wacky, if you mean. Like, it's not actually like a inventive, interesting example of how it's crazy and weird. It's just sort of like, whatever goes. It's basically a meme machine. And, I like memes like everyone else, but I'm not going to rank it as top 10.
But Scott, the staff's victims that are turned into animals and are cooked after the fact become meat known as wabba jerky, which has created debates on whether eating it would be considered cannibalism. You want that absurdly sweet power, Scott?
Yeah, no.
I think the fork of Herpulation is more interesting.
I agree. I honestly agree, unironically.
Hot take.
But it's a really cool looking staff, and it's kind of just a shout out to Shea Gorath being whimsical and kind of a bit nutty.
I do like the look of it still. It is cool looking. It's just that I've seen it so much. And I also like that one of the random effects, although I swear I've never seen it in Skyrim. I just know it's so hard to get to happen, but is it decapitation? I think you just shoot someone with it and their head pops off.
Yeah, it definitely happens. One of my favorite ones actually is just turning them into a pile of coins.
Yeah.
I think that's a...
Sounds like you're coming around to
No,
it.
it doesn't sound like it.
You like it a
just
little bit.
No, I...
Okay, so that's not on the list. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to name some, and you two tell me if you have something else on your top 10 that we didn't rule out. Umbra, the Grey Caliph Nocturnal, Skeleton Key, Black Books, Azura Star, Mask of Clavicus Vial, Ebony Blade, Mehrunes Razor, Spellbreaker, Dawnbreaker, Savior's Hide, Mysterium Xerxes, Spear of Bitter Mercy. Is there anything else anyone wants to include?
I had the Daedric Crescent as 10, but I could be convinced out of it easily, or I could be convinced for it easily, obviously.
Okay, what about you, Drew? Is there anything else I forgot to mention there?
No, everything I want in the top 10 is there, pretty much.
Okay. So that leaves us with 14 things. So we're gonna have to lose 4.
Well,
we're all gonna have to agree to lose 4.
Tell me why we shouldn't lose the black books.
I just think I really, it's another that, that corrupting influence kind of thing. I like that, that hunger for knowledge that they're going after. But then I love the idea of the existential dread and esoteric kind of creepy knowledge that utterly consumes someone. Like I really like, and there's also quotes in the black books that I like, but one of my favorite ones is the waking dreams, which was a point that I really mentioned in the most recent one. It says, the eyes once bleached by falling stars of utmost revelation will forever see the faint insight drawn by the overwhelming question, as only the true inquiry shapes the edge of thought. The rest is vulgar fiction, attempts to impose order on consensus mantlings of an uncaring godhead. First, and then it goes to continue on. But I was actually talking about it. There's a quote. So for Middle Dawn in the first era, which was this big, 1,000-year-long sort of dragon break that was crazy different. The only consensus on any event that actually happened was 8 falling stars during that time of this dragon break, and I love and I was connecting that to Manamako, who in that time says that in the Middle Dawn, that's how he learnt his great mystery. And so if you connect that to the once bleached by falling stars of utmost revelation, your eyes, so experiencing the Middle Dawn, and the utmost revelation being his learning the big great mystery, the faint insight drawn by overwhelming question. But yeah, and I like that. And I like the reference to mantlings of kind of like how it's almost like futile. That's not even the important thing, like, because the godhead doesn't care kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? It kind of throws that, like, kind of trivializes sort of the things of Talos and Tiber Septim and all the mantling.
You're sounding like someone who's read the black books a bit too much,
Right. I think you've sold it to me. I think that's top 10. But I would say Mysterium Xerxes needs to be higher on the list than black books. So long as that's met, I'm happy.
But to further on that, there are other ones that are a little bit. Some of them are like just a little bit, poetic and nice. Like I like the city of ink seeds rose from the desert, shining and decadent. Like just little lines and bits and pieces in there. But ultimately, It's the whole Lovecraftian sort of idea of this existential dread that this can give you. That even when you think you kind of understand the metaphysics and stuff, and you're like, it's kind of like trivializing the whole concepts of mantling and stuff. It's like, who cares? And the whole godhead realization, like the idea that you could just go down this path and just become nuts. And also when this is a little bit of a derivative story, but with Morian Xenos, who goes nuts. He's this master conjuration mage, and he goes nuts in the realm of Apocrypha, slowly, and then that his apprentice is communicating with him, that he can't even understand Morian Xenos' language anymore. His language is something else now. He whispers in just some random ass language that they don't know about. So I just like that whole theme of forbidden knowledge, really, I guess. And I think the black books personify it, and they look cool. These big black books with a mist that comes off them, and
you've just written a black books video. This is so unfair.
Yeah, that's true.
He's still got the high.
If you master the black books, you can speak
I've
a
actually
random
literally lost
language.
audio. Hold on.
He's lost audio.
Rip. Well, we continue without him.
Hello? Okay, cool. I lost audio there. So
you were so worried that we'd maybe be against the black books. So you're like, no, pulling out all my headphones, ripping out my computer.
So your headphones are all good. You'll have to invest in some new ones.
Yeah, I will.
I'm sold on the black books. Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to think, what can we easily eliminate? Is everyone happy to, like, what are your thoughts on getting rid of things like Dawnbreaker, Spellbreaker?
Well, what I was going to say is, like, Daedric Crescent is one that I've got at number 10, and I've got it there, and I could be easily changed. So
and none of us have it.
So you could
let's
get rid of the Daedric
ditch
Crescent.
that one. Do you two think that Savior's Hide is... What did you rank it, Drew?
I had it 8. So that's one that I'm also willing to
What was your 10? What's your 10, Drew?
I mean, my 10 is some of it has kind of changed because, like, as a joke, I had Wabberjack at 10. So I feel like there's only like 5 or 6 I'm gonna go to bat for here. So and
but what is kind of like your 10?
Xerxes at number 1, Mask at number 2, Umbra, Grey Cowl, Skeleton Key. I had Sanguine Rose in there, Savior's Hide, Scourge, Volandrom, stuff like that. So most of them.
Scott, what's your 9?
My 9 is Spellbreaker.
And my 9 is Spellbreaker as well. But I can't admit Savior's Hide being cooler than it, eh?
You can't.
Savior's Hide sounds like it has a cooler story.
I personally think Savior's Hide is more interesting,
but Spellbreaker should be on the list, I think, still, because it has a cool story. Plus, the shield itself is really unique and cool.
Maybe.
Where's Dawnbreaker for you?
I had it at 8. I mean, I could even get. I could toss that aside, man. I mean,
how about we get rid of the black books, guys?
No.
Good idea, right?
Just read Lovecraft. You don't even need to bother with a black book.
See, now I'll throw you to a bone because I know you're gonna jump on it. I have Azura Star at 5.
I could toss Azura Star.
And I know
entirely.
you two don't like it.
I don't dislike it. It's just I don't think it's. I think like everything else I've looking at, like they were looking
I just think Azura Star is better than Savior's Hide. Okay, here's an idea, you two. I have a feeling that our lists are a little bit too different and that we're never going to get a top 10. How would you feel about agreeing on a top 5?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then we can try to agree on like a
top
top 6, a top 7, and then, yeah. Because that's when you'll see where it falls apart. So Umbra's number 1.
Yeah, I've got Umbra at number 1, yeah. I've got Mask Clavicus Vial 2. And you had that, Drew?
I had it, 2. So I think I'm happy to put that in too.
I had the Mask as like number 5-ish. It was in the middle.
I actually thought you would pick the Mask over
now
everything.
I like the story. Okay, look, I can put Mask in top 3 at least. Do you guys think the Skeleton Key or the Grey Cowl is cooler than the Mask of Clavicus Vial?
No, but I do think the Grey Cowl's top 5.
I have a feeling we're not going to agree on anything. Okay. Do you think that the Mask is top 5, everyone? Sorry, the Cowl.
Yeah. I would put it next.
I'm not even necessarily convinced on it at the top 5, but I
gosh.
had it at 6. Like it could be. I could easily, like, I know obviously, like if you were trying to eliminate ones, like I know you guys don't like Spear of Bitter Mercy as much. Like that could go.
Well, how about we put Mysterium Xerxes at number 3 then?
The only reason the Mysterium Xerxes is the same thing is it's the book itself.
But the thing is, it's what the book inspires. It's a manifesto. Yeah. That's the whole point. It's what it causes, not necessarily just what it is. It's not just Mehrunes Razor just sitting there with his several hands, just pondering what to write in his memoirs. It's a bit more than that.
I mean, I could even budge Skeleton Key, like thinking about it. Like, there's cool applications, though. What you did say with the connection with the Lunar Lattice
Azura
is cool. But
what did you have Skeleton Key as, Drew?
5.
Let's put Skeleton Key at 5 then.
Sure.
I can.
So Umbra 1, Mask of Clavicus Vial 2, and then what's 3 and 4? Because Black Books is one of them.
I'm just gonna have to concede so the podcast doesn't go forever.
I think Grey Cowl should go above Skeleton Key. Personally.
Yeah, okay. What did I put? Yeah, I put that as well.
Okay. So we just need one spot to fill. Where I would put the Xerxes in there. I think the Xerxes is more interesting than the Black Books. Is there any other artifact that deserves to be in top 5? Like, would you put Spellbreaker or Dawnbreaker in there?
No.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of comes down to those two, unless there's something I'm forgetting.
Yeah, this kind of is my top 5, except that I had the Black Books instead of Mysterium Xerxes, so...
I mean, look, I can concede, but I really do think the Mysterium Xerxes is a lot cooler than the Black Books.
Look, I think we can all agree that no matter what list we end up making, it's not going to be a genuine list of any of ours because
it's all based on
we all have
compromise, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Just pick your choice of book to go in the top 5.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. I'm gonna have to put the black
Yeah.
book. Sorry, man.
I'll do the same, just because there's actually, for starters, we can actually read some of the black books.
But is that a good thing?
Oh, it's like,
Yeah, like that's interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
there is a translation of the Mysterium Xerxes, but it's
Yeah.
Kirkbride.
Okay.
But it is.
Well,
I mean, look,
yeah.
I'm sure he was a big part of conceptualizing the Mysterium Xerxes.
Was he?
You know, there are lines like, "As for the rest, the weak shall cast down, the mighty shall." Or as for the rest, the weak shall be cast down, the mighty shall tremble. Yeah, okay. This is like, it's written like the dead inside do not open or whatever. So it's like I'm reading different sentences together, but yeah, there's some cool sentences in there.
Look,
but
I mean, look, I can see this. If it's not in the top 5, it's definitely 6. But
Okay. Fine. Mysterium Xerxes can be 6.
because it is cool. Like, if you do factor in all the Mythic Dawn commentaries, like Mythic Dawn commentaries are like right up there in like favorite books.
Okay.
But it's,
Would we say the Mysterium Xerxes is cooler than the Skeleton Key? Did any of you two think?
I
that?
mean, I to be honest, I kind of could be convinced of that. Like,
I'm being convinced of that as well. Let's just chuck it in number 5. I think that's a good. That's a
okay,
good
so
spot for it. Skeleton Key 6.
So what do we kind of got? So
oh,
Umbra.
wait, sorry, I've got to say this sentence from the Mysterium Xerxes. In my first arm, a storm. My second, the rush of plagued rain. The third, all the tinder of Anu. The fourth, the very eyes of Padhom. It's like, it's so badass.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got Umbra, the Mask of Clavicus Vile, the Black Books, the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal, the Mysterium Xerxes, and the Skeleton Key
Yes.
as 6. I feel like we have to
Do you
have,
feel?
after hearing the story, the Ebony Blade in the top 10.
I mean, I would put it in there, but
Okay.
like, oh, well, so I think we've got the first 6 pretty well sorted. So, what are we kind of? What are the competitors for the last like 4? Like
Competitors.
competitors.
We've got the so you two definitely would not have Azura Star. I can concede, like, okay.
Honestly, the rest I think you two should just put together, because there's nothing else that I really want to defend. All the good stuff is done.
What is the remaining? What are the remaining ones?
Savior's Hide, the Spear of Bitter Mercy, Dawnbreaker, Spellbreaker, Mehrunes Razor, Ebony Blade.
If we're gonna have a Hercene artifact, just pick one of them.
Oh, you kind of. I don't know. I just feel like Spear of Bitter Mercy gets used a lot more and stuff, and like in the Battle Spy story, but also how it like belonged to one of the Herns, like one of the Daedric hunters, like Hern the Hunter, like kind of thing. Literally just.
What if we put in Spellbreaker as number 7, and then we can decide, is Savior's Hide or the Spear of Bitter Mercy cooler than Spellbreaker?
No, put
I would
Spellbreaker
say-
there. Yeah.
What do you think, Scott?
I mean, if you were to ask me which one do I want, like I'd probably take the spear,
Probably
bro.
the
to
spear.
come and
I can
to
agree
summon
with you.
its-
There's a lot of history to it.
Yeah, but also like even just the power, like I like it. Like it's got a magical shield on the Spear of Bitter Mercy and a Storm Atron arc. I just kind of like it, sort of almost the spear kind of. I don't know. I imagine the spear is like kind of like taming the Storm Atron arc kind of thing. Like it's sort of like a hunter with his side. I don't know.
The Spear of Bitter Mercy is at 7, and then we've got Spellbreaker at 8. Unless you think Dawnbreaker. Oh, sorry. The Ebony Blade is cooler than Spellbreaker. 100%.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah. I'll put Ebony Blade above Spellbreaker.
At 8. But you think the spear is cooler than the Ebony
I
Blade?
think so too. I prefer spear to katanas.
Okay. All right. Drew, you love katanas. Come on.
Yeah, I'm the biggest weeb.
And then we have 3 left to put into spot number 10 or above Spellbreaker or Ebony Blade. Mehrunes Razor, Dawnbreaker, and Savior's Hide.
Mehrunes Razor.
I'd say Dawnbreaker next.
I would put. I think I'd put Spellbreaker. Funnily enough, now I'm thinking about it. Like I did have.
Wait, is Spellbreaker not already in there?
Yeah, it is. It's 9.
Spellbreaker's not. So hold on, which numbers?
We're just doing 10 now, right?
We're just doing 10.
All right, so read me the whole list.
Okay, Umbra, Mask of Clavicus Vile, Black Books, Grey Cowl of Nocturnal, Mysterium Xarxes, Skeleton Key, Spear of Bitter Mercy, Ebony Blade, Spellbreaker, and what? The Razor, the Breaker, or the Hide?
I'd probably rule out Hide out of those two, as it's got a cool story. But if I actually think about it, it is just like sort of like a.
I'm gonna put Mehrunes Razor. I'm gonna put Mehrunes Razor because of the metaphysical potential. Like Dawnbreaker is just a sword with light, and Mehrunes Razor is just a dagger that kills things instantly. But then Mehrunes Razor also has this potential.
I think that's
idea.
fair. I think that's fair.
Okay. So we think Spellbreaker is cooler than Dawnbreaker.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. The list is complete.
I think that's a pretty good list. So give it a final read. The top 10
All right,
consensus.
the final top 10. And thank you to everyone who's watching the podcast. I really want to hear your top 10s or see your top 10s in the comments, and follow us on Twitter too.
I wonder how much flack will catch for not having Wabberjack even in there.
Nah, I think people will agree, man.
It's fun in game.
Shea Gorath is super cool, and Wabberjack's really fun. All these artifacts are great. It's just not like, in terms of like cool lore, right? Surrounding it is not as cool.
Yeah.
So we've got Umbra, the Mask of Clavicus Vial, the Black Books of Hermaeus Mora, the Grey Cowl of Nocturnal, the Mysterium Xarxes, the Skeleton Key, Spear of Bitter Mercy, the Ebony Blade, Spellbreaker, and Mehrunes Razor.
Yeah,
there we go.
I'm pretty happy with that list.
I'm content.
I'm content.
All
All I really cared about was Umbra and Mask of Clavicus Vial, the top two.
Yeah, I think they deserve
that's
it.
cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks everyone for watching. As I said, social media links there in the description below. You can get our merch if you're interested in supporting the podcast and looking awesome. And we look forward to nerding out with you again very soon. Thanks so much, everyone.